Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. As part of your big news today, we'll be discussing a very important conference which is happening as we speak, which is the No Money for Terror conference. The NMFT is a very important concept which has emerged recently in 2018 itself. And before we begin, as always, we are available on Telegram, so I would expect you to join us there using the QR code given here or the link given in the description below. Now with this, let's try to understand what is No Money for Terror, the NMFT conference. So the context is very interesting and it's linked to internal security itself, which is that India has been a major victim of state and non-state actors financing terror via different means, be it hawala, be it cryptocurrency, be it the NGOs, or be it different and diverse institutions itself. So India has seen firsthand how terror financing can happen, and for a very long time India has been trying to raise the alarm bells, but everybody has generally ignored this call. However, in the past 5 to 6 years, when the West started to become a victim of terrorism itself, they have now become more and more conscious about terror financing, and in that context the state and non-state actors, and with regards to ISI and Pakistan itself, the state and non-state working together and certain NGOs which are using that money to in turn fund terrorism have now come into focus. So there is a lot of concern with regards to crowdfunding platforms now financing terrorist activities and social media platforms allowing some financial transactions to happen. Therefore, there is no real scrutiny or control with regards to that. Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, or any other form of coin has become a major concern for the state itself because of the anonymity aspect of cryptocurrency. So there's a conference which is going to be held as we speak in New Delhi and is expected to be attended by a representative of 75 countries. However, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and China have shown a reluctance to be part of this organization, and therefore with regards to Pakistan and Afghanistan, the two major terror financing actors, this whole exercise becomes futile if they don't turn up in that regard. Why is this topic very important for you? It gives us an opportunity to understand the static behind what is NMFT. So NMFT was actually started in 2018 with the initiative of the French government itself, and the French government has always been very forefront with regards to money laundering and financial institutions which help the terrorist activities itself, and that is why in 1989 they laid the foundation of the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, and it is an international body which later became a major combatant of money laundering and terror financing. However, even though the FATF was there and Pakistan was there in the FATF for a very long time, has recently been removed from the grey list, there was still the ISIS or the Islamic State, even the Al-Qaeda, who were getting the funds they needed. So despite their territorial defeats in Syria, Iraq and Afghanistan sector itself, Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, the ISIS, the ISIL as we call it, was getting the money via different channels. Therefore, consequently, financial intelligence units, FIUs, a very important concept, was established in 2004 itself in India, previously existed in other states also, which is a central agency which is responsible for receiving, processing, analyzing and disseminating information related to suspect financial transactions, which is together called the Egmont Group. The FIU said that we need another mechanism, another conference which can bring these things into focus, because the FATF was more about money laundering and terror financing was getting ignored. So the Egmont Group, which is technically part of the larger FIUs, which brings close to 100 FIUs together in order to improve their communication, information sharing and training coordination in that regard. So the Egmont Group, technically the FIUs together called the Egmont Group itself, have been the catalyst of change, and they are the ones which produced the NMFT, which is the first meeting happened in Paris itself in 2018. Thereafter in Melbourne 2019, India was poised to host it in 2020. However, because of the pandemic, it did not happen, and now it is happening in 2022. So let's try to recap what we've done till this point. We first understood that India has first-hand experience with regards to state and non-state actors getting financed via different channels. Thereafter, we understood the concept of the NMFT, which is the Known Money for Terror conference, and its origin is initiative by the French government in 2018 itself, and the French government itself was doing it under the impulse of the FATF, and with the ISIS, the ISIL and the Al-Qaeda still breathing and still alive with all channels closed, the question with regards to terror financing became important. Therefore, the FIUs came together, and in India 2004 was a very important year where the National Central Agency was established itself under the Egmont Group. The first conference happened in 2018 and thereafter 2019. So this is the history of the No Money for Terror conference itself. It is the third edition of this, and India has been very, very vocal what it wants from this conference. So let's try to understand the agendas. What have they been trying to focus throughout the years? So in 2018, it was about criminalizing terror financing, enhancing traceability and transparency, which is that there needs to be accountability on someone who is actually financing these different bodies. It discussed traceability and transparency of the non-profit organizations, the NPOs, and charitable funds. And this was a new aspect which emerged, that NGOs, shell NGOs have been created so as to fund these terror organizations, and a lot of money which has been given with very good intention is used for terrorist activity. In 2019 in Melbourne, when it happened in Australia, it was about kidnapping from ransom and the emerging technologies which allow for this to become even more hard to trace. So digital and cryptocurrencies, stored value cards, online payment systems, crowdfunding platforms were the new channels which were for the first time flagged as problematic. And what India wants to set as the agenda for 2022 are four very basic things, which is use of virtual assets and crowdfunding platforms by terrorist entities, which is a very major problem right now. So GoFundMe or any other form of platform which is there for inventors or entrepreneurs to get some form of money. In these platforms, shell accounts have been created which are hollow from inside in order to get financing. The second thing which India wants to point out is the use of the dark web, which is in itself a problem. Then we also want to create a very important link, which is between terror financing and legitimate economic activity. And the last thing, the fourth thing which India wants to point out and is to emphasize is on payment intermediaries. For example, the Hawala system. So India will discuss the misuse of the NGOs, the non-financial businesses, professions in terror financing, as well as talk about money transfer services and Hawala networks. And this is very, very important because India is not just talking about the state and the terrorist organization, but the intermediaries. So before we end this discussion, which is very, very important for internal security, you need to understand three very basic things. This conference is not something new. It's the third edition, 2018-2019. Thereafter, it is based on the impulse which came from the FATF, the Egmont Group, which is all the FIUs coming together to create this organization, this conference, so as to bring the concept of terror financing into the mainstream. And the agendas over the years are actually talking about technologies. They were able to first actually point out that NGOs are using their channels to fund terrorism. But India wants to talk about intermediaries. India wants to talk about the dark web. And let us see what is the conclusion of the declaration which comes as of today. But for the UPSC examination, the basic concept of Egmont Group, the FIU, the conference itself, and for the mains examination, the concept of traceability, terror financing, cryptocurrencies, and the vulnerabilities which are in turn added to national security is something which we need to emphasize about. With this, I would like to end this session. Thank you so much for your patience. I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.